The topics we discuss are many, no story too bold to talk about. Strictly our own opinions, but they are opinions from people like you. Welcome to the Naked Podcast.
So today I learned my PMS is a social construct.
It is.
What are we talking about today?
I'm sorry, what?
So because our diets are so different from our Eastern friends, we have more PMS symptoms than they do because they have more they have a less of a red meat base. And I think it was Jane Usher who was like, yeah, PMS is a social construct.
A YouTuber named Tim Cass that Ethan watches a lot. He shared it with us. I was fired up when this guy was talking about how PMS is a social construct, especially coming from a woman who is an academic of women's studies, saying that PMS is basically in your head. I was pissed. I started doing research. I got on Twitter. I found her. I was going to flood her ass with memes. And then I put a pause on that and I said, you know what? Let me actually listen to what she has to say directly. Because we've seen it before. Carson King, for example, we covered in earlier episodes. I had to know. I had to know straight from her mouth. So I listened to her talk about, how PMS is worse in the West because of diet. She didn't necessarily say that PMS is a social construct and made up in our head. It's more so how we eat, the hormones that are in our food, and also how we respond to emotions. Your PMS whenever maybe you're cooking dinner for your kids and you hear them arguing in the background and you're trying to get dishes done, and then you look outside and you see your husband drinking a beer sitting in the backyard, instantly pissed off, and maybe you yell at your kids or you yell at your husband, and then you say, you know what, I'm sorry, that was just PMS, I'm about to start my period. No, there's a bigger issue here at hand. Now, that's not to say that PMS is not real, because during that time of month, you just can't help but be crazy.
You are in pain.
Yeah, me being a white man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay? So I'm going to get my 2 cents in on here. I, grew up with sisters, so I understand that it might be more mental, a lot of it, but I can understand you being in a bad mood because your body is shedding itself. You're in pain. It's understandable. When Kielyn, snipes at me, it's just like, okay, baby, here's chocolate. Leave me alone.
So I also grew up with a lot of women, sisters, my mom, my aunt. Usually when someone is in a bad mood, I say the fuck away. we have a phrase for that in Spanish. It's called mal humor. You're pissed off. Leave her alone. Okay.
I like that. It sounds tough and firm.
Right.
How do you say it?
Mal humor.
Mal humor?
Yeah.
So one thing that I've noticed in all my research through my life is dealing with women who, are going through it. Every woman's a little different. And you just got to kind of learn your woman. And that's what, for me, kind of gave it some steam that it's a social construct. The idea gets implanted, and on the other hand, I can understand that you're in pain. You're going to be in a bad mood. I would be in a bad mood if my knee hurts,
Well, it's just there's times where I've caught myself where I've been really irritable before that time of month, and then I just milk that. So the one bad thing that pissed me off, I'm going to milk that for the rest of the day just because I can. And then I have to check myself and say, you know what? It's not that deep. Chill the fuck out. Go eat some chocolate.
I've been luckier than most women. They go through some excruciating pain, and usually if I do get cramps of any sort, it's usually some back cramps. It's a little sore, but I get through it. Whatever, push through. But I was also introduced to birth control at an early age, and so that actually helps reduce a lot of the symptoms and keep my hormones in check. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago when I decided to get off the birth control that it was on. And I went 3 or 4 months. And I noticed right before that time of the month, I would get super irritable. I was really bitchy and I was mad about everything. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what PMS is. And so I went to my gyno. I was like, hey, I need to get on a different birth control because of this, this, and this. And she's like, oh, well, you can't because, of your this medical condition here. And I was like, but no, I'm so much meaner whenever I'm not on my birth control. What do you mean? She's like, nope, you're just going to deal with it and be a bitch like the rest of us.
What? That's time to switch a gynecologist. Are you kidding me? I would have been like, okay.
I hate when my gyno's a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're catty little bitches.
Y'all know me. I'm a nice person. My
gyno's a guy. It's real fucking weird. Just kidding.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No, just I'm a nice person, and being mean really isn't my forte. Like, it's hard for me to be mean to somebody at times, depending on who they are and what they're doing. But I'm really glad you did that research looking into her and what she actually said with her statements, because a lot of that does make a lot of sense, especially in young girls today.
Yeah, absolutely. It just made me really stop to consider, what is the truth. So this YouTuber, he was going off an article. The source was the Daily Mail, which, wouldn't be my first choice for, for news. And it makes me wonder, what else have we been socially engineered to believe based on what the media is telling us?
Yeah. I mean, look at CNN, look at Fox. They have completely different views on the exact same piece of information, and they twist it to say, oh, look, this is against us or this is for us, when...
And I don't think that it would be an issue if they didn't try to present themselves as non-biased. Like, if you log into the Daily Wire, at the end of every show, they say, we are the fastest growing conservative podcast, our radio show. They say it up front, like, we're coming from a conservative standpoint. We're not saying we're biased. We're not going to lie to you. This is what we believe. If you don't like it, don't listen.
They're not hiding their persuasion.
Yeah, you're right. And CNN doesn't do that. And neither does Fox.
No.
And what's worse is that when they're wrong, nobody comes up to the plate and says, we were wrong, this is the actual reporting. And that's where journalism has died, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know if y'all watched the Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan interview.
I watched the beginning of it.
So it gets in, because I don't know how much y'all know about how Hillary Clinton went after her.
Oh, fuck.
Hillary Clinton went on, I think it was MSNBC or CBS, one of those, on live TV, and it was, oh yeah, she's a Russian asset. And nobody said a word. Everyone just clammed up, and that was the end of the story. She's having to fight that and say that, no, I'm not. Just because I don't want to do what she wants me to do doesn't mean I'm a Russian asset.
Hashtag fake news. I do have to say that's one thing I kind of appreciate Trump for, is calling out the media. Because at first I was like, no, the news has to be trustworthy. That's always what I believe, that you have to be trustworthy to be in the news. And the whole fake news bit in his earlier side of his presidency is, you can't trust the media. I mean, look at this. This is a small-time blogger, right? It's not a mass media publication like CNN or Fox or MSNBC. I wouldn't hold him as accountable as they would, but they make these same mistakes. So what are we being swayed to, one side or the other? I feel like if you read something, you have to go and search in 3 different areas to make sure you can connect the dots.
But he does read it in satire, because he's reading the article, and that's how he presents things. Like, he reads the article and then talks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, even he was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, I think he was trying to start a wave, right? Because that was my reaction from it, was pissed off. And he was making some jokes, and I was like, yeah, get him. Like, kind of just that satire of that parody of just making fun of somebody and making fun of this woman who is a professor who works with LGBTQ women. She's researched cancer survivorship. She's done a lot of things, but that article made her appear to be so anti-woman. I don't know if he disclosed it or not, which I don't think he did, if this was fake or real, but it led me to believe that it was real, having never watched him before, like, really consistently.
Yeah.
Some of it is, he's playing to audiences. He has to play to the YouTube audience and the Twitter audience. He presents a few things I don't always like. The whole point of it is to get you going, to get you thinking, and to get you involved. So you thought about it, you went and researched, and now we're getting involved in it.
But here's the thing, is how many people actually do that?
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Because, that article is a clickbaity title, right? PMS is a social construct. People are going to share that without even reading it, without even taking the time to research it.
That was on Timcast, which is more of the YouTube-friendly audience. For the more hard-hitting, like, straight-laced stories, he has a different channel for that.
And that's why doing your research, especially in today's media, is so important, because you need to find the authority that's presenting it. You need to find, like Norma, the authority for that one. She found the actual video of her talking about her points there.
That's one of the things that drive me crazy is people go, well, I saw this on Facebook. Oh my God, that's the worst. Never believe anything you read on Facebook, for one.
Absolutely
Everything on
not.
Facebook is true.
And then, oh, well, it's on YouTube. Well, that doesn't make it right. Actually, go research the subject.
Well, I have to say, like, recently, it's kind of been in the news about the 2020 census and about the citizenship question. I read a couple of things on Facebook, just like skimming through articles, not really reading them or putting too much time in it. And a lot of people were against it. And I didn't really understand why. Honestly, I didn't really care until recently.
So I understand the problem that a lot of people have with putting the consensus question on there, because it is going to make a lot of people who aren't, or consensus question, the citizen question on the consensus. I understand why they don't want to put that on there, because if they're illegal immigrants, they don't want to be found. If you're not a citizen, maybe they're going to come find you. But I do understand putting it on there because it's going to, and Ethan, you actually made this point, the representatives from every section, it's going to give you a clearer idea of who are citizens and who are not. And our representatives are based on our citizenship, not the population in that area.
Yeah, well, that's has been one of the issues, is that a lot of people are coming from an emotional standpoint. And this isn't really, yes, we have to have emotion and we have to be caring, but we really need this information, and we need to know this, because it is going to affect us for the next 10 years. Everyone has to put on their big boy pants for one day and do it. If the government's already watching all of us, they know what we do. You got the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA. They're all watching us and not our enemies, so they already know.
And they're not asking, the people to explain why they're not a citizen. It's just a simple question. Are you a citizen or aren't you? Thank you. Have a nice day.
Something else to consider too is that the census, the national census that happens every 10 years, that's one part of it. But there's surveys that go out every single year that have that citizenship question on it anyway.
And it's already on the long form. They have a long form and a short form. If you fill out the long one, it's already on there. So they were only talking about adding it to the short one also. One piece of paper that doesn't have it. And they're like, well, it's on everything else. Can we just add it to this one? And now everyone's
What's
like,
the
no.
difference between the long form and the short form?
Just
then?
more detailed. Like we talked about earlier, you give them a lot more information. Like if you have properties or businesses, and break things down a lot deeper.
So the short form is just like generic. That's like what's mandatory. But the long form is optional.
Yeah.
So it's not on the short form, which is mandatory. Got it. So you have the choice to make if you want to fill out the long form and say if you're a citizen.
They want to know for sure, and I think we need to know. It's not we have an issue with people. If they're filling out a census, do you really think they're illegal? Like, honestly, people that are going to be filling out are the legal residents waiting to get citizenship.
Or even people over here on work visas or vacation visas, or, for whatever reason.
Studying abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like with, this question being posed, I do agree with you, Ethan, that it is an emotional argument, because I feel like people feel quote unquote profiled already. But when it comes to money, where to put our money, where to fund it, what programs to fund, isn't it just a no-brainer just to say, are you a citizen or are you not? And then maybe even break it down to more. Are you a naturalized citizen? Do you carry a visa? Like, are you, maybe have like different steps if the answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I came from a border town. I've seen more illegals than legals. So I'm from a border town, South Texas. Mexicans are crossing over to the United States to be able to get better jobs for their families, to be able to feed them and do everything else. Throughout my childhood, there were a bunch of people who were like working on this side under the table. They would come over to this side to work and then live over in Mexico. So it's completely normal. I mean, things are a lot cheaper in Mexico, and even then, some of them lived over here illegally. They wanted to be as off the radar as possible, but going to school, I was always taught, make sure you fill this out. This is how the government knows what the area needs. I think it's important, even if you're here illegally or for, to escape whatever atrocities are happening in your country. We need to know so that schools are being funded, cops are being funded, everything's
allocated.
Being funded. Yeah.
And who's to say that they go, oh, well, okay, so this area we have a lot more, non-citizens than we do citizens. So what do we need to establish in that area to help process them into citizens? Because a lot of the people that are going to be filling out this form are residents.
Right.
My parents are residents. My mom finally got citizenship. They've been here for the longest fucking time. My dad's run businesses. He's paid his taxes. He's paid his due. He's still just a resident.
So this actually went up to the Supreme Court to decide on, and the Supreme Court decided to not include it on the census. The reason why is because the argument from the lawyer was very flimsy. The justification was more so of, well, it's just so we can enforce the Voting Rights Act, which the Voting Rights Act just helped enable minorities get to the polls. So I saw the connection. It was very flimsy, and I think that's why the Supreme Court said, you know what, this is going to be closed for now, but this doesn't mean that we are not going to talk about this later on when we have more information and seeing how it impacts the country. Because they only had a couple weeks when the Supreme Court had heard this before the forms had to be printed to be on time.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to, on the next, I know, for 10 years from now, but it will be on the next census. It's because that's what they only kicked it back because they said y'all couldn't justify it. Like,
right.
We agree with you, but you couldn't justify it.
So I think on the next one in 2030, they're going to start including as to what planet you're from.
I'm down because I'll be on Mars.
I mean, Elon Musk is already like trying
Planet
to plan
Musk,
shit
dude.
out. Yeah.
And finally, some Gen Xers will be getting into the political game high ranks. Some of them are finally going to die.
Well, that's another issue that they said there's a bunch of Republicans that have been in the Senate and the House for 20 years. They're all retiring this year.
That's one thing I agree on with Ted Cruz's term limits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Term limits. We need constant change and progression. There's no way that if you hold this seat for X amount of years, you're getting anything done. Some other good news in the U.S., our unemployment rate is at a 3.5%.
Fuck you.
Wow. They passed UMCA, so the trade agreement between Canada and Mexico and the United States. Feels like everything's going up, and the economy's only on the rise.
Yeah, exactly. Last month, over 200,000 jobs were added to the job market. A lot of people are asking, well, since there's so many jobs being created and the economy is so strong, why aren't we seeing a minimum wage increase? Which is, at first a fair question, and unless you really look at it.
People can't have everything instantly. I mean, it's coming. Wages are going up.
Yeah, wages actually, statistically, they are rising slightly at 3.1% just over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a pretty big increase. So when you talk about, minimum wage, there's things like in New York where they raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now businesses who have been there for years and years and years can't sustain themselves and pay their waitresses and waiters $15 an hour. So I think you're right when you say that we can't have everything instantaneously, because when you look at the job market where it shows like that boom, the economy's holding strong, so the wage increase will catch up. Our living expenses are dipping. Inflation is dipping, so it's matching up pretty evenly.
Nice.
So thanks, guys, for listening to us here at the Naked Podcast.
You know what's cool? Coffee, tacos, and supporting small creators.
Find us on Patreon at www.officialmillennials.com. New website coming soon.
Ooh.
Add us at Twitter at OG_the Naked Pod.
Follow us on Discord.
The links for Discord and Mixers, our streaming websites, are all in the description for the episodes.
If you have any suggestions on what to talk about for our next episode after the new year, make sure you shout us out on Twitter.
Or send us an email, info@officialmillennials.com.